Welcome in college baseball central fans. Marshall, Jackson, here for the midweek talk in Texas. How we doing today?
Doing good, guys. How are y'all?
Doing great.
Yep, lots to talk about here in the Lone Star State. Second best baseball, I think, in the country behind the Carolinas. Let's go ahead and jump into it with our preseason number one CBC Texas team, the TCU Horned Frogs. They swept Florida Gulf Coast and then won their midweek last night against a very gritty Texas State. 10-9, 13-10, 11-6, and then 6-5 in the midweek. Friday and Saturday, they had two kind of gritty wins as they came from behind. Obviously, on Friday, Peyton Chatier stole second and then scored on a strikeout error. And then Saturday, Peyton Tolley had the big hit. Sunday was a little bit more carefree day. Marshall, I know that you got to watch this TCU team. How do you think they played? What would you grade them?
So TCU, you mentioned it. They showed a lot of grit, but if you're Florida Gulf Coast, you got to be. You got to be just punching yourself right now. They just shot themselves in the foot. They had them in games 1 and 2. Really, game 1 they had them the entire game. I believe it was they had a TCU scored 7 unanswered to come back and win it in the 9th on that drop third strike steal home. But Florida Gulf Coast, they played good for rolling into number 5's ballpark. But I don't know. TCU just who was their starter on the bump, Anthony Urcidi, he was knocked out in the second inning. After the second inning, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 4 base on balls. And so that kind of just was just a shot in the gut for TCU. They kind of had to come back from that.
Yeah, when you give up 9 runs, 10 runs, 6 runs, as a staff, you're really not going to be too impressed with that. But the flip side of that is the offense truly battled. They've scored double-digit runs in all 3 games, and then the 6-5 win over TCU. Brody Green is the one that I kind of came impressed with. He didn't start on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, didn't get any at-bats as they brought in a stud freshman behind him as well as a transfer. Finally got the call against Texas State, had 3 hits. So Sarlos has now some question marks and good question marks in that to see kind of who's going to play third base. And again, Peyton Tolley was the headliner. He had the big hit there. How are we feeling, Jackson, about this TCU team? I know you were probably preoccupied up in Arlington, but I'm sure you got the highlights.
Yeah, so the other day when I was watching the interview with you and Noah talking to Sarlos, I think Noah asked him, "Are you more concerned with or it was something along the line?"
Did we lose Jackson there for a second, Marshall?
I think we did.
I guess.
Jackson.
Hello?
Hold on. Well, Jackson. Oh,
there he's back. There he is.
Yeah, so I was saying it was something along. Noah asked him something along the lines of are you proud of how your team battled through adversity, or are you concerned that your team got down this far or whatever? And he said he was proud of how they battled through adversity, but I would be a little concerned if I were him, just because Florida Gulf Coast, not the flashiest team in the world. You're number 5 in the country. I feel like you should handle business there. Obviously, good thing they swept them, but
Yeah, that's going to be a series that I think we're going to look back on and kind of laugh as TCU kind of avoided heartbreak. But as we kind of move into talking about this weekend, it gets a lot harder. UCLA is rolling into Fort Worth for a 3-game series. I think that this is where we're really going to find out about what this TCU team is. Yeah, they had the gritty wins against Florida Gulf Coast, but again, when they play Power 5 arms in the Pac-12, they're not going to be able to score double-digit runs all 3 games. So is the staff going to be up to the task? That's going to be the questions that we're going to ask about this TCU Horned Frogs team, which, again, they're very, very deep. So they have the lineup, and they have the rotation. It's kind of those middle-of-the-road guys because obviously the starters are going to be a lot better. Jackson, what do you kind of predict from TCU this weekend as UCLA rolls into town?
I would expect them to handle business fairly well. Again, they're a top team in the country. Sarlos is getting them prepared. They're fixing things that they didn't do well this past weekend. They're going to be handling business. I feel like I don't see a reason why they shouldn't.
Yeah, Sarlos always has them playing tough competition. I expect TCU to kind of come out and play like the top 5 team that we saw. I expect big things from them. I think UCLA is kind of a fringe top 25 team. They're traveling halfway across the country. I think that the Frogs are going to feast this weekend. Marshall, is that kind of what you're seeing, or are you seeing something different?
Yeah, I mean, they often showed that they're going to be fine this season, especially early in it. That's I feel like that's the thing you're most worried about early in the season is your bats, because most of the time pitching is going to be good. Good pitching is going to be good hitting most of the time early in the season. But I really do think that pitching staff is going to be fine. I'm not worried about it. I mean, you saw this weekend, your CD only went like 2 innings. Cole Klecker only went 3, and then Zach Morris only went 4. And so I really think that's kind of like an anomaly for this pitching staff for this season. I'm not worried about them at all.
Yeah, Carlos mentioned that it was Klecker kind of being off key as he pitched in a lot of the Saturday kind of scrimmages, and that he had a little tightness. So expect him to kind of get stretched out. Ben Abel, I think, is going to be a guy that they really, really count on. But I think before we move on to Texas A&M, I think the truly underrated kind of player of the weekend was Anthony Silva. I mean, we knew about his glove coming into the year, but I think the bat answered a lot of question marks that people had. He definitely was the MVP, I think, for TCU this weekend. Moving on to our tied for number 2 with Texas, but they got a first place vote. Number 2 in CBC, highly ranked in our top 25. Number 2 in Texas A&M Aggies. Obviously, they played an inferior opponent, McNeese. They won 15-0 on Friday behind a ton of home runs. Saturday, they played in a cold, miserable game, Marshall, that you and I caught. 6-1. It was a lot closer than the score let on. And then Sunday, 10-0 and 7. And then Incarnate Word last night, they won 9-3. I know it's McNeese, and I know we're going to pump the brakes. That's going to be kind of the theme of Texas A&M. But that's about as close to an A-plus weekend as you can get from a team. They dominated the entire weekend. Friday night, they only had 1 hit, launched 6 home runs, I believe. Saturday, Max Coffer, who didn't start on Friday, had kind of the big hit. And then Sunday, took care of business 10-0. Marshall, what are you kind of thinking about this Texas A&M team?
Yeah, I give them the first place finish on the weekend in Texas. Friday night, that's about as good as opening day as you can ask for. 15-0, 17 hits. Ryan Prager comes in, his first start since coming off Tommy John surgery. Goes 5 innings, 1 hit, 0 runs, 0 base on balls. Just heavy fastball slider mix, just throwing them in there for strikes. And then the bullpen coming in there as well and shutting things down. And then I think the big name of the weekend was Jace Laviolette. 2 for 5 in his opening day with 2 bombs. 5
home runs, leads the nation in home runs right now.
5 home runs in 4 games so far.
Chase for 33.
That's just insane. And then with that 1-2 punch with Laviolette and Braden Montgomery, that's just such a dangerous combo right in the top of the order for the Aggies. That's going to give everyone a ton of trouble this season.
It's crazy to me just how fluid Braden Montgomery's swing is. Like, it seriously looks like he's in BP hitting off a tee and the ball goes 400 feet. Marshall, you kind of touched on it. I think the truly underrated part of this weekend for A&M was the balls. They really limited them. Last year was abysmal, for lack of a better word. They broke a school record. They shattered it. I know that we didn't really touch a lot on the midweek with TCU, but I think that's kind of the big story with Texas A&M is Chris Cortez went out for UIW. He did allow the 2 runs in 5 innings, but the walks. Last year he had trouble really finding the zone, and this year he really limited that. I think he only had 1 walk, and that was kind of the story there. We're going to talk a lot about this A&M team. I think if they figure out the bullpen, which it looks like early on, at least they have, the sky truly is the limit. I think this is the most talented team Sauce has had. Jackson, I know Marshall and I are A&M guys, and we're salivating at the math. Bring us down to earth a little bit.
I don't see a reason why y'all shouldn't be down there. The A&M handled business. They did exactly what they needed to do this weekend. Crushed the team they should have crushed. It's not much to it.
Yeah.
Another guy that I really want to highlight is Ali Camarillo, transfer from Northridge out in California, playing shortstop for the Ags. On the weekend, he's 7 for 13 through 4 games, and he just has he's lights out on up the middle. But then he's also, people sleep on his bat a lot. He's known for his glove coming in here into the season. But he really showed. He's batting in the 9 spot, that turnaround guy, and he just really showed a lot of potential this weekend. So that's a guy that really excites me too.
Yeah, and he had that knee injury too on Saturday and kind of battled through and had the big hit that really broke it open. But if you can get production out of your 9-hole, regardless of what conference you're in, you're going to win a lot of baseball games.
Yeah, absolutely.
Looking ahead, we have a comment from Casey Krager. They play Wagner this weekend. Wagner obviously took it on the chin from UNC. They played 3 very, very uncompetitive games. The log ball kind of plagued them. I think it's going to be more of the same for Texas A&M. I think that this is likely a weekend that they go 3-0. And I don't want to look ahead too far as Lamar beat them last year, but they have a really, really good chance to roll into Arlington being undefeated.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't want to ever look past those sneaky Tuesday games, man, especially against scrappy clubs like Will Davis has out there in Beaumont. But, I mean, if it would be – disappointing if A&M did not dominate this weekend against Wagner. I mean, even if they just went, even if it's close games, even if you get into Saturday, Sunday, and it's 2-3 run games, you're going to be a little disappointed there. You really want them to really just roll in there and just handle business, very firmly this weekend.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be one of those scenarios where I think A&M is going to have to avoid trying to beat themselves. I mean, anybody can beat anybody if you walk them. And if they can limit the walks, that's really going to tell the story. But at least so far, I mean, Coach Wiener for Texas A&M looks like a home run hire.
Absolutely.
Moving on to our other second-place team that didn't receive a first-place vote, so they are third, the Texas Longhorns. They played a very, very scrappy San Diego team. Friday night, obviously, Jalen Flores had the grand slam to give them the lead as they won 7-3. Saturday, they lost 6-5 in 11 innings on the double play. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Sunday, they got the bounce back, winning 9-4. Houston Christian, I guess kudos to them for jumping out to the 1-0 lead. But other than that, they lost 20-3. Very, very inferior opponent. I know that Texas played tougher teams than TCU and Texas A&M, but a lot of the issues for Texas that we thought were going to be there didn't really show. And then a lot of the stuff that we thought we could count on from Texas didn't really shine. Marshall, how are you feeling about Texas this weekend?
I mean, just kind of just an underwhelming performance from UT. The big story that I thought coming out of the weekend is Tanner Witt getting pulled out of the second inning, I believe it was, on Sunday after some command issues. That was really disappointing to see. I'm a big Tanner Witt fan, so that was a little disappointing. But yeah, just kind of like they just I know that San Diego's better than McNeese and FGCU, but if you're UT opening weekend, you want to really jumpstart the season, and I just felt like they let San Diego just hang around all weekend.
Yeah, that's how I kind of felt too as well. Jackson, how do you kind of rate Texas on this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a Texas fan, you have to be concerned with Tanner Witt. He was 86, 89, control issues like that. That's just not going to cut it. You know what I mean? I think one positive I would say is Will Gasparino. I mean, he was getting every day at bats throughout the weekend. That's a good thing to see, especially as a true freshman. You always want that. Yeah, I would give it maybe like a B plus, A.
That's what I was going to say too as well. Yeah, a few lineup notes. Jared Thomas started at first, obviously, as the Duke transfer isn't with the team anymore. He played a ton of center in the fall. He's kind of back in that role. Will Gasparino played center. I know that the plan with him was to play right. And then Max Ballou is who got the start in right, kind of stepping up. And Kimball Schulisser is who won the job out of camp at Texas. He had a hit on opening day, but honestly, he really didn't impress me a ton behind the plate or kind of hitting. So I think that that's very much still an open competition behind the plate. Marshall, I know that you and I talked offline about just enraged about Will Gasparino. What did you see from him this weekend?
Yeah, Gasparino, I mean, I'm looking at game one. He's hitting in the 9 spot, and he got his first knock in game one. But I mean, he's got a ton of potential. 1 for 4 in game one, and then got a hit in each of the games this weekend. But then against HCU goes 3 for 4. So that's exciting to see. I know it is just HCU, but 6'6" playing center field, freshman. I'm not worried about him at all. I think he's going to come in, and I think he actually has chances to be first team all freshman Big 12 this year.
Yeah, he's got a really long swing that I think just needs to adjust to the college game a little bit. I mean, Marshall and I remember last year with Jace Lavalette, he really struggled early on before picking it up in
goes
SEC
and hits
play.
21 home runs.
Yeah. So I think Texas fans are fine with him, but I think the story of the weekend was just the versatility of the Texas bullpen. They logged out a ton of guys. I think they had 5 guys Friday night, 8 guys Saturday, and then 5 again on Sunday. So I don't know if that was hey, we want to see a lot of guys get arms, or pitch limits was something. I know Charlie Hurley on Saturday went 3 2/3 and was at 76 pitches. That's going to be something, again, that he's going to have to limit down the stretch. Had those 4 walks. Texas is going to need to get him to go deeper into games because, again, the strength is the Texas depth, but I think it only goes about 4 or 5 deep. They definitely don't have enough to go about 8 or 9 every single night. I don't think anybody in the country does.
Yeah, absolutely. The guy that I really want to highlight is Cody Howard, coming in after Tanner Witt leaves early, unexpected. And he goes 4 innings and gives up 0 earned runs. I think he gave up a run, but 0 earned runs. And so he gave 4 innings of just really solid baseball out of the pen after Tanner Witt left unexpectedly very early.
Jackson, what did you kind of see from this Texas team? Is there anybody that really stood out to you?
I mean, I was thinking Will Gasparino. I mean, he's just crazy toolsy. I was high on him before the season. I'm still high on him. He's going to be insane. But yeah, I'm still really concerned about Tanner Whitman. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I think that he's going to steal a lot of the headlines. Before we move on, Logan, who we did the spaces with last week, he kind of fact-checked us here with a little bit of the lineup notes. Again, Galvan started Saturday and Tuesday, so they truly did kind of split time. So like we kind of hinted at, it's an open battle. Moving into the weekend.
There, but
go ahead, Marshall.
No, I was
going to move on, so get it in.
To see with that catching role between those 2 guys. I feel like it's going to be kind of a little like A&M last year, where they just didn't know for so much of the season, just swapping guys. But no, I really have no clue who's going to kind of take charge of that position back there.
Yeah, luckily they have that lineup depth. Obviously, I mentioned with Jared Thomas, I think he's going to work himself into a few Golden Spikes conversations sooner rather than later. I think he's one of the more underrated bats in Texas. But moving on to the weekend, Cal Poly's rolling into the dish. Very, very underrated Cal Poly team. Obviously, this isn't the one of Brooksley a few years ago, but they're better than Wagner. And then St. John's in the midweek next week, they knocked off Florida. So that's going to be a game that I think Texas is going to get up for. I expect Texas to kind of go in, handle business. I expect the starters to kind of pitch a little bit longer. And I expect the bullpen to be a lot better. I think that Texas has the talent to be up there and be one of the best bullpens in the country. And against an opponent like Cal Poly, I think that they go and improve it. Marshall, is that kind of what you're seeing as well?
Yeah, I think so. They really got to handle business this weekend, because after this weekend, it kind of ramps up. They got because after this weekend, they have the Shriners College Classic down in Houston, where they're playing LSU, Texas State, and Vanderbilt. And so this is an important weekend just to kind of get on the right track.
And A&M on the tail end of that, I believe, as well.
Yeah. Yes,
so definitely. I mean, like we said with TCU, this is kind of the weekend that we prove it with TCU. I think Texas still has a little bit of time to figure it out. I don't think David Pierce is going to give too much of his hand away on who he thinks is going to compete. I think that there's still a lot of those roles open. But again, Texas is going to have to prove it a little bit more. As we move on to, I think, the surprise team of the weekend, DBU Patriots sit at 4-0. They hosted Southeast Missouri State. We're going to use the same superlative that we use for TCU, as I think it kind of fits it again. Gritty win on Friday 9-5. Gritty win on Saturday 8-6. Gritty win 6-5 in 11 innings. But I think the story of DBU, and I think why we're talking about them, is they beat OU in that Tuesday midweek. OU was, I think, one of the hotter teams coming out of Arlington. DBU wins a back-and-forth game with them. So I think the DBU is going to be a team that I think people are going to start to recognize. I really liked what I saw in that OU midweek. Jackson, I know you watched it. What did you kind of see from DBU?
Yeah, I agree. DBU's played some gritty games like you said, the past week. But yeah, that grand slam, and I think it was the 7th inning. Yeah, it was the 7th inning grand slam that put them ahead. That's just a game changer right there. I mean, it was insane. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, there's a lot to like with this. Jackson, I'm sure
Grand
you got
Slam
the
was hit
box.
by Nathan Humphreys, their leadoff center fielder.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot to like about this DBU team. I think that they're going to piss a lot of people off in these midweek games, and that is kind of their Super Bowl RBI booster. But again, DBU's almost turned it into a mainstay in the tournament, that it seems like there's 63 spots in the 62. I think you can write in Wright State. I think you can write in DBU as the two teams that are always going to make it. And again, more in the same. They play Central Michigan this weekend before that big midweek against the other team from Oklahoma State, as they are doing the same thing where they're sticking around in Arlington. Not really much to say because DBU is a tough team to watch. So we'll go ahead and move on, Jackson, to your Red Raiders. They obviously played the toughest competition of any of the teams we've talked about. They sit at 3-2. They lost to Tennessee opening night, beat Nebraska on Saturday, beat Oregon 11-7 on Sunday, demolished a UT Arlington team that split with UTSA 13-1. And then obviously in the radio game today, they dropped 10-4. Jackson, you've seen the most of Texas Tech. Kind of tell us what you saw this weekend.
Well, today Oregon State was not good, or Tech was not good against Oregon State. They're a good Oregon State team. I think you just tip your cap to Oregon State and move on. My favorite game from this weekend was honestly the Oregon game. It was really back and forth kind of through the first, I want to say like 5 or 6 innings. And then we started to pull away. Damian Bravo currently is tied for 3rd in the country in doubles. He has 5 doubles, I believe. He had another one today. And then another key, I think, was yesterday against UT Arlington. Gavin Cash finally connected with his first home run. He was struggling for those first 3 games of the season, man. I think it was like 1 for 16 or 1 for something like that. And he was just not seeing the ball very well. But he finally connected yesterday. He was pissed on. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, that was an absolute no-doubter at a major league stadium.
Yeah.
We saw the same thing from Gavin Castro last year where he kind of started slow. Honestly, I think he hits better near the bottom of the Tech lineup. He's just one of those players that seems like when he hits in the 3-hole, he struggles, but he hits in the 6-hole, and you're like, why isn't this guy hitting in the 3-hole? Obviously, the back-and-forth game against Tennessee, the 6-2 is a little bit deceiving. I felt like it was a lot closer. Tennessee just kind of got the big hit late. But I think credit to Tech's starting pitching. I think that's really what jumped out to me in the Nebraska and Tennessee games was how good the Tennessee pitching was. And then again, Kevin Bizzell behind the plate. I mean, his defense flashed. I know that was something that we were going to have a lot of question marks about. He played tremendously behind the plate. He looked like he hadn't missed a beat back there.
Yeah, also big shout out to Jack Washburn, first time pitching in like 600 days or something. 4 innings, 6 hits, 3 runs, 3 earned. I mean, I'll take that any day if you're pitching, like if your last start was 600 days ago. I think he had like a scapular injury or something.
Marshall,
Jackson,
what did you kind of see from Texas State? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, so Jackson, what did you think about Kyle Robinson started Friday for Tech, correct? Yeah. What did you think about his start?
I thought it wasn't his best. He didn't have his best stuff. I mean, everything. It looked like it was kind of iffy. I mean, I still think it's something to build upon. I think that's all you can really take out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I just saw I watched the Friday game mainly, and just I mean you can't win if you can't get on base, and so I mean I don't think they worked any walks during that game, maybe one. I think they worked 1 walk during that game and only had 5 hits. Whereas Tennessee, looking right here, they had worked 5 walks and then had 8 hits. I mean that's just gonna take over every day. But no, I mean, gritty win the next day against Nebraska, and then they handled business against Oregon and then UTA yesterday.
Yeah. And then I tweeted out the other day, I'm still extremely high on TJ Pompey. I think he's going to be nasty.
Yeah, I mean, they do kind of have those middle infielders that blend together that play virtually mirror images of each other where both can play short, both can play second. So, I mean, Tadlock's got a lot of luxury there. I mean, if you have a second baseman that can play like a shortstop, that's going to pay dividends. I wouldn't look too much into the Oregon State loss either today. Oregon State just seems like they're a buzzsaw on a tear, and I expect to see more of the same. I know this isn't an Oregon State show, but I expect to see more of the same this weekend. Looking ahead, Texas Tech playing Texas Southern, SWAC team that really didn't play very good in the Cactus Jack Classic. They get 3 midweeks. This is going to be a get right quick
bloodbath. Yeah,
I wouldn't read too much into this series either way.
It's in Lubbock too.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's not going to be at the City Park in Houston. Like, it has to be in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We won't spend
I mean,
too
that's
much time on
3-0.
this one. The 3-0, three double-digit games.
Yeah.
I think maybe the pitching walks a lot of people. That'd be the only thing.
I'd be surprised if Texas Southern scores over like 4 runs this whole weekend.
I'd be surprised if Texas State doesn't go 3 innings in a row scoring a run. That's how low my expectations are for Texas State.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine the starters get pulled around the 6 or 7.
There'll be a lot of guys who this is their like 2 at bats of the year or something like that.
Yeah, send in the walk.
They'll lose that red shirt real fast.
Yeah.
Our last team we're going to talk about, obviously, we'll write an article up on all the mid-majors that we missed, as there's 24 Texas teams, and this should be a 4 or 5 hour podcast. Houston Cougars. They're in the Big 12 now. They won 8-4, 8-2, 7-0, and then 27-1 against PV. The reason they're in the show is that PV game. PV, obviously, there's a big talent gap between the SWAC and the Big 12, but they had just won the Cactus Jack Classic in Houston, and Houston made them look like they were just an absolutely abysmal program. I mean, they hit a grand slam in the first inning. I think they were up 15-0 in the second inning. Like, it was
they scored nine runs. Houston scored 9 runs in the bottom of the first before they ever got an out.
Yeah, they're stuck. Yeah, so I have Prairie View's box score here. Farmer got the loss for him. Didn't record an out. 4 hits, 7 earned runs, 2 walks. Carleton didn't fare much better. 1 2/3, 9 hits, 9 runs, 3 walks on 50 pitches. McKay down the line got 4 outs, gave up 6 runs. And then for Houston, again, it's Prairie View, but there's a lot to like from Justin Murray and Alex Lopez. I know they were with the team last year, and then Trey Jones, the transfer coming over from the Islanders down there, Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, he hit an absolute tank.
Monster.
Right over the bat. I mean, it was probably, 430, 440?
Had to have been, yeah. I didn't see StatCast on it.
It was just insane. But they play an interesting one this weekend. They get St. John's at home. And obviously St. John's beat Florida on Friday night, really took it to them the entire game. That's going to be a series that I think a lot of people are going to tune into that maybe a week before didn't really give it a second look or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I really have no idea what to expect from the St. John's team. I mean, they go down and take down, what was it, number 4, Florida, and I mean they just were competitive.
They dominated. It wasn't like that was a fluke thing either. Like, they dominated from the jump.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was really, really weird to see, and so I'm not really sure what to. I don't know if that was a fluke or not, but I mean, it's going to be a good battle down in Houston this weekend.
Before we kind of get on with it, obviously a few notes. Sam Houston took 2 of 3 from our ranked Oklahoma State. They won Friday night and Saturday night, and then Sunday. We're not even going to talk about Sunday. Friday night and Saturday night, they dominated. Mm-hmm. Tarleton in their midweek beat UTSA. I think that those are 2 programs that we thought were worlds apart. But again, Tarleton had the walk-off grand slam to win it. So credit to the Texans down there. There's lots of great baseball in Texas this weekend. Yeah. I mean, UT Arlington and Boston College. There's the Round Rock Classic where those 4 teams are going to be down there. Pitt's going to be down in Corpus Christi. There's a tournament down in Corpus Christi. So while South Carolina and North Carolina might have the best teams, I think Texas is the center of the baseball world this weekend. There's just a ton of great baseball all over the state. Before we go, Jackson, what's kind of the one game that you're going to be clued in on the most? What's the one you're looking the most forward to?
Obviously the tag games, because but then I mean that Houston game, I think that's going to be a real battle there, like you said earlier, like a series that people weren't really looking forward to begin the season, but both teams kind of put themselves on the map within the past 3 days. So, I mean, I think it'll be interesting.
Marshall, I know you're probably going to say Texas A&M biased, so give us somebody other than
well,
Texas A&M.
So I'll be at the Aggie game this weekend, but I'm really glued into the TCU UCLA game. I'm really interested to see how TCU bounces back from some of that adversity this past weekend. I know they swept Florida Gulf Coast, but I want to see if they're able to kind of take charge of a really historical, solid Pac-12 UCLA team.
Teams involving non-Texas teams in Texas, I'm going to go Oregon State, Arkansas. That's going to be my game of the week.
Really
ton of history there. But games that involve Texas teams, Boston College, UT Arlington.
That's going to be fun.
That's going to be the one that, it's exciting that they can even get a team like Boston College to come in. As I know Boston College was a deep, deep tournament team last year. And that's going to be the one I think that's going to turn a lot of heads. And then again, as I kind of get the Pitt schedule, I think that's the one that I'm kind of getting FOMO about down there at the Battle at the Beach in Corpus Christi.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Are they playing at Whataburger Field?
They are. I'll get it pulled up. Yeah, Gritzburg's undefeated this year. I know a lot of people were sleeping on the Gritzburg Panthers as it loads in here. I don't know. I mean, it just keeps flashing the Pitt logo. There we go. They play Washington, Maryland, and A&M Corpus Christi. So, I mean, those are two tournament teams, team that's undefeated, and then the hometown team. But Marshall Jackson, we're at that 30-minute mark, about a minute over. Any final thoughts?
Hey, it's gonna be a fun weekend in Texas baseball, man. This weekend, it's gonna be good. I'm looking at TCU and that U of H game.
Yep. I believe that's all we have time for, though. Every Wednesday for about 30 minutes, we're going to be breaking down all the major hitters in Texas. Anything unexpected that happens, we're also going to be breaking down. So be on the lookout for that. Once again, this is Jake McKeever, Jackson, and Marshall. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey, guys.